I want to say a few words briefly about some of the technical details, if you like, and then we'll open the floor for reactions and come back to people on this side of the table to wrap up. But this is going to be fairly quick, as you've heard from me enough, and in particular, I've got absolutely no intention of lecturing the people in this audience on good practice. I'm not competent to do it. That being said, some messages that we've heard. So we're going to have different standards for different exercises, the low, medium and high impact. But basically we all want high standards for modelling and simulation, because it's the high standards that help to build the comfort. And if you build the comfort, you build the acceptability. So we've got to think about assumptions, we've got to think about model building, testing, inference, how to challenge assumptions, how to report. And these are not trivial. Each of the breakout sessions talked about the difficulty of finding a framework for their assumptions and a framework for challenging their assumptions. We've heard about the problems of selection bias and Peter Bauer's hopelessly biased technical statistical problems, and the conflict of interest bias, and we need to think about how to address them. I think we really need to address the problem of communication. I mentioned in our breakout session, we can just about do pharmacometrician to pharmacometrician, statistician to statistician, but life gets complicated when it's pharmacometrician to clinician, or clinician to clinician talking about pharmacometrics. Life gets complicated. We all agree, I think, we're trying to add objectivity to inform a better decision that's still made in a subjective way, and that we want to base all of this in sound scientific understanding. But that leads us to all of that leads us to some problems. What do we mean by pre-specification, and how important is it? Do we have to do it just before the analysis or before we collect any data? I imagine some of you in this room will be appalled by the idea of pre-specification, because in some ways it completely contradicts modelling. Modelling is getting some information and then working out what it means, starting and working out what it means. It's almost a contradiction to pre-specify. But you've heard the regulatory attitude and the basis for our usual decision making, which is entirely based on pre-specified methods. Guidance. Could we document M&S good practice in guidance? Well, I guess it's clear that the guideline on POP-PK reporting can't serve for all modelling and simulation exercises. I'm not even sure that writing guidance is possible for high impact exercises, and I'm not sure it's helpful. And we've heard about the benefit risk of guidance. So there could be benefits to defining standards, but there could be risks to defining standards as well. But I think whether we call it guidance or reflection papers or white papers or whatever else, I think there probably is a benefit to getting some regulatory positions down on paper for further discussion. There's a real opportunity. There's a need and an opportunity to build trust. And the potential for abuse that I talked about yesterday could destroy trust. And I think we need to build the experience, to build the comfort, and that means we eventually build acceptance. But we must build trust along the way. I think we need to think about safety and efficacy in our modelling and simulation exercises. And I want to echo again, this is a challenge to the regulators almost, but I want to echo again the point that Scott made, that while the regulatory assessment process might change, the level of scrutiny for different exercises, if we change fundamentally our regulatory standards, then we become a barrier to innovation. So Spiros has already covered scientific advice. There's also national scientific advice procedures, as well as EMA European advice procedures. And that's enough of that. The purpose of that was really to remind on some of the technical aspects that have come up over the last day and a bit. you.